I want to thank everybody for listening in on my talk today. Now, this project has been an incredible collaboration with the Bureau of Land Management, so I'm really excited to be giving this talk today on the thermal ecology of the blunt-nosed leopard lizard. So let's go ahead and dive into that. Now, it's no surprise to us that we're living in a world with a rapidly changing climate. In fact, this figure seen in front of you is a figure taken from a well-known study, and this is a heat map showing an increase in extinction risk among lizard populations worldwide. Now, I want to draw everybody's attention here to the bottom panel showing that by the year 2080, we're going to be seeing greater than 90% extinction risk in these populations located in these hot regions of the world. And this in part is due to the fact that lizards are going to be losing hours of activity, meaning that they can't be out in the open or they can't be above ground to do essential lizard things like looking for food or searching for mates because temperatures are going to be too hot for them. So this leads me to my study on the blunt-nosed leopard lizard. Now, historically, this lizard ranged throughout the Central Valley of California, but due to anthropogenic disturbances such as oil drilling or agriculture, there has been an 85% decrease in this species, leaving them in these isolated small populations located throughout that Central Valley. And so since the 1960s, this lizard has been listed as federally endangered. Now, I had the opportunity to study a population in the Carrizo Plain National Monument. Now, I know this photo is absolutely breathtaking. This was taken at my field site during a super bloom, but just 3 weeks after this photo was taken, when temperatures begin to rise and those flowers die off, this is actually what my field site looks like when this lizard is active. And so what makes this species so unique is that they're only active for 2.5 months out of the entire year. And not only just that, this habitat that they live in, which can be described as a very harsh and desert-like environment, is pretty simple to study because there's only 3 major microhabitats available to them: out in the open sun, under the shade of an ephedra shrub, as seen here in this photo, or inside the burrow of a giant kangaroo rat, which is also listed as federally endangered. So knowing that these lizards are only active for such a short period of time and that this habitat is pretty simple to study allows us to ask questions about the thermal ecology of the species and how climate change might be impacting them in the future. So for this project, I hypothesized that given that these lizards are already living in this really hot and harsh desert environment, they're utilizing all 3 of those microhabitats in order to successfully thermoregulate. But not only just that, specifically, they are utilizing the shrubs and the burrow systems to successfully thermoregulate. Now, in order to test this hypothesis, there's a number of variables I need to collect. The first one being field active body temperature. So at the beginning of my study, I collected 30 blunt-nosed leopard lizards and fitted them with this radio transmitter collar seen here on the right. This collar allowed us to track them 3 times a day. But not only just that, the collar was temperature sensitive, and that means that it recorded field active body temperature during the duration of their active time. And so from this data, I was able to calculate the maximum body temperature that these lizards experienced while they were active. This is also known as the voluntary maximum body temperature. You could think of this temperature as sort of like a temperature that they really don't want to be at. Next, I needed to collect data on the temperatures available to them in each of the 3 microhabitats. In order to collect this kind of data, I needed to create what's known as biophysical models, as seen here on that left photo. These biophysical models are super cool because they actually mimicked the body cavity of a non-thermoregulating blunt-nosed leopard lizard. I created these models, deployed them in each of those 3 microhabitats during the hottest time of the year in July. Next, I needed to collect data on their preferred body temperature range. Now, the preferred body temperature range you could think of as a range of temperatures that they really want to be at. They prefer to be here. In order to collect this data, we brought out a very large gradient to the desert. This gradient had a cold end and it had a hot end. We placed the lizards inside that gradient and they were able to choose which temperature they wanted to be at. And lastly, we needed to collect data on their panting threshold. The panting threshold is a temperature at which they can't go above that because we start to see fatalities occur at that temperature. And so the panting threshold is deemed by a behavior that we see when they're heating up. So we place them inside this machine here, and we're looking for this behavior of panting. Panting is described as this rapid lateral movement of the thoracic cavity, as seen there in that video, with an open gaze cave mouth. Once we saw that behavior, we logged that temperature, pulled them out, and began to cool them down. Now we have a lot of variables here. What does this look like on a figure? So I want to remind everybody that this figure here is going to be for the month of July. I'm going to be animating in each of those biophysical models one by one, followed by the thermal variables, and lastly, lizard body temperature. On the x-axis, we have time of day, and then on the y-axis, we have temperature in degrees Celsius. So right off the bat, these are my biophysical models that I place in the open sun. And I love this so much because it is such a great description of how extreme the temperatures change in this habitat. We have temperatures as low as 17 degrees Celsius in those early hours of the morning, but yet as hot as 50 degrees Celsius during those peak hours of the afternoon. The shrub temperature is not nearly as hot as out in the open, but still pretty hot. And then as expected, the burrow temperatures are going to be the more stable temperatures that allow these lizards to be within their preferred body temperature range. Now we have a voluntary maximum body temperature at about 41 degrees Celsius and a panting threshold at about 42 degrees Celsius. I want to let everybody know that the body temperature that I'm going to be animating on here is going to be an average of all 30 blunt-nosed leopard lizards during the month of July. So at about midnight, we could see that these lizards are actively following those burrow temperatures, and at 7:30 in the morning, there is a peak, or a spike that is, in that body temperature, and this is because they're coming out of those burrows and starting to shuttle in and out of those 3 microhabitats to stay within that preferred body temperature range. But around 2 p.m., they actually exceed outside of that preferred body temperature range, and this is likely because they're sacrificing their time to be within that range in order to look for food or search for mates. But what we really want to know is how might these lizards be restricted from each of the 3 microhabitats because temperatures are not favorable to them. And so I'm going to be talking about 3 different scenarios here. One where it is too hot in the sun, where it's too hot to even be above ground, or where it is too hot where not even the burrow systems are offering temperatures that are favorable to them. So when I say it's too hot, what do I mean? I mean that temperatures are going to be surpassing that preferred body temperature range, where temperatures are going to be going past that body temperature that they don't really want to be at, or surpassing temperatures that are going to be lethal to them. This is going to be during a 12-hour active day for them. So currently, they are already restricted for 9 hours out of their 12-hour day, where temperatures are not only just surpassing their preferred body temperature, but also surpassing their panting threshold. Currently, they're already restricted for 8 hours of the day, where just being above ground is not offering temperatures that are within that preferred body temperature range. And 5 hours where being above ground is lethal to them. We don't see any restriction currently where all 3 of those microhabitats, including the burrows, are not offering temperatures favorable to them. But if we apply a 1 degree Celsius climate change projection to this, we start to see some increase in the restrictions, but not so much, and we don't see any restriction in the burrows. But at a 2 degrees Celsius increase, this is where we start to see change. So at a 2 degrees Celsius increase, they only have 2 hours out of the day to utilize being out in the open sun that will be within their preferred body temperature range. But at a 2 degrees Celsius increase, they're losing more hours of the day that they can spend above ground, forcing them to be within the burrow systems because temperatures are surpassing not only that preferred body temperature, but the panting threshold. And at a 2 degrees Celsius increase, they lose 1 hour out of their entire day, where not even the burrow systems are offering temperatures within their preferred body temperature range. So to wrap this up, blunt-nosed leopard lizards do utilize all 3 of those microhabitats to successfully thermoregulate. Specifically, the shrubs serve as an intermediate thermal buffer that allows them to stay above ground for longer periods of time. This allows the BLM to use this research to manage the shrubs and the burrow systems more effectively. But they're already restricted for a good amount of hours of the day, and that is going to change with climate change in the future, and we will likely see extirpation of this species in the future. I'd like to thank a lot of people for the opportunity of this project. Thank you to the BLM, Nature Conservatory, Cal Poly, and the Cal Poly Frost Scholarship. And with that, I will take questions. Thank you.